Good evening, everybody.
Hey, Jonathan, how are you? Hey,
Hi, me, Jack. Okay, there you go. Chrissy.
Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you.
What's up, Manny?
I was muted. Good evening, everybody.
and you.
Wear my red.
All right.
You see my red, man? That's the only red I got. Rutgers shirt, baby.
That's okay.
Here we go.
Collared.
The only thing I have in my house is Indiana and Michigan.
Yeah, this is it. That's all I got.
I wore red yesterday. I had the wrong day.
Can you guys hear me?
Oh,
Yes.
loud and clear.
All right, how do I sound? I'm trying out the new headphones.
Fantastic.
Clear.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, very good.
Okay.
Yeah, no echoing there, Miss Ferrante. Awesome.
That's because you have them in your ears finally. There you go. Buy a pair of headphones for Christmas.
Doug, I'm not used to you without the beard.
It's officially baseball season, so
I
no
know,
beard for
I know.
baseball.
Listen,
There you are.
I think you're going to have to get a fake one, glue it on for the council meeting.
Doug, did you save some of the hair?
No, it wasn't. I mean, it was like that long. I mean, it was a good amount, but no, I didn't save any.
Hey, gotta put it,
I could have put it up here. I could have just taped it.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah, it worked.
Hello.
Hey,
How
John.
you doing, John?
Hey, John.
Hey,
Good
how
evening,
are you?
John.
Good night.
Good night. Hello, Carl.
All right, it's 6:30. Chrissy, are we recording and all yet, or?
We're recording and live streaming. We're good to go.
Okay, it's 6:30. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Please join me in the flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now I'm going to take a moment of silence to remember the service and sacrifices of the armed service members who protect our nation and the first responders who protect our neighborhoods. And I believe Mr. Sackett has something to add.
Thank you, Council President. I just wanted to quickly read obituary for Henry Smolen, born September 23rd, 1946, passed away April 1st, 2021. Henry Smolen, 74, died at home on Thursday, April 1st, son of the late Abraham Smolen and Sarah Bloom. He was born in East Flatbush, Brooklyn, and moved to Rockaway, New Jersey, 48 years ago. Henry was a retired mechanical engineer and co-invented the radar antenna for the 1971 Lunar rover vehicle. He enjoyed reading and expanding his vast knowledge of all things mechanical, working on whatever needed fixing, and teaching others how to fix things themselves. Playing poker, listening to doo-wop music, participating in family gatherings, and spending time with friends who were like family. He especially loved being silly and cozy with his grandchildren and granddogs. Henry is survived by his devoted wife of almost 50 years, Susan, children Stacy Schwartz, husband Jeff of Bridgewater, Rachel Silman of Parsippany, and grandchildren Lucy, Maya, Abby, and Sam. He's survived by his sister Florence and brother Sheldon. Donations in Henry Smolen's memory can be made to the Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. Just a little bit about Henry. He was one of my dad's best friends. The family had moved to Rockaway because Henry actually worked for my dad for many years, and grew up with the family, spending many happy times together. And just a tidbit, as I mentioned in his obituary, Henry liked playing poker. I didn't know this till after he was already in office. Councilman Friedlander actually had a pretty good relationship as well with Henry Smolen, because Councilman Friedlander played poker with him for quite a while. And also Councilman Friedlander replaced my dad in the poker group in Rockaway. So I just wanted to mention Henry and the whole Smolen family. Keep them in our thoughts and my prayers. Thank you.
Yes.
Sorry for your loss.
Council President, can I add somebody too as well?
Absolutely, Mr. Kelly.
First and foremost, Jonathan, my condolences to you and your family. It seems you're real shooken up, and I recognize that. So again, my thoughts and prayers to them as well, and as well as you and your family with that.
Thank you.
On the 4th of April, we had Miss Dio, Kathy Dio, who was married to Pat Dio, who was our former Financial Review Board member. She had a strong battle with cancer for many, many years. She had raised her twin daughters and her son in the Birchwood section of Rockaway, which they all went to Morris Knolls High School and Birchwood and Copeland. And she had moved over into the Denmark area of the northern end of Rockaway Township, just off of Green Pond Road. She had always devoted herself to St. Cecilia's in religion. She was very helpful with many fundraisers that we did. She would purchase Christmas trees for those in need during the Christmas tree season when we would sell them at Lake Telemark, Toys for Tots, and she also donated a lot of her efforts over to Lake Telemark too. So I just wanted to make a mention, primarily because of her residency in Rockaway and her activity that she has done in the past. Also, Mr. Dio, who was a wealth of information and a diehard a volunteer in the community as well. So just the thoughts and prayers to the Dio family too. Thank you.
Thank you. Clerk, you can take the roll call.
Councilmember Kelly,
Here.
Councilmember Quinn,
Here.
Councilmember Friedlander,
Here.
Councilmember Kritz,
Councilmember Kritz will not be in the meeting tonight.
Councilmember Salberg,
Here.
Councilmember Brooks,
Here.
Councilmember Noon,
Here.
Vice President Sackett,
Here.
President Jackson.
Here, we have a quorum. Please be advised that all electronic remote meetings of the Township Council held on WebEx are recorded. All members of the public will be provided with the opportunity to speak. During any public hearing or open to the public sections of the meeting, the Township Clerk will unmute each member of the public and ask if they wish to speak. As per Rockaway Township Code 2-5.14, any person desiring to address the council shall first seek recognition by the presiding officer, and upon recognition by the chair, the person shall give their name and address for the record. Unless further time is granted by the council, they shall limit their statement to 5 minutes. Statements shall be addressed to the council as a body and not to any member thereof. A councilman shall not direct any question to a speaker addressing the council except through the presiding officer. In addition to speaking on the record during council meetings, members of the public may submit questions and comments to the council by emailing questions@rockawaytownship.org by the end of the open to public session. This meeting was advertised in the Daily Record and the Star Ledger, the official newspapers for the Township of Rockaway, on April 10th, 2021. Notice was posted on the official bulletin boards of Rockaway Township. First agenda item is the adoption of the 2021 municipal budget. Ordinance to adopt O-21-19 ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and to establish a cap.
We're having issues with Ray. Want to get
on? NJSA 40A:40-45.14. Can I have a motion?
Can I interrupt for 1 second, Mr. Jackson?
Yeah.
We're having a little difficulty trying to get Ray on the meeting. Can we skip to the next item for now? I'm sorry.
Can we do that, Ms. Clipperton?
As the council president, you can change the order of business as necessary without formal action by the council. So we can move
Okay.
on to item 7, approval of minutes, and then we can go back to the adoption of the budget.
Yep, so let's do that. We're going to skip to item 7, approval of the minutes, March 23rd, 2021, regular meeting. Can I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Council President.
So Mr. Friedlander and Mr. Sackett. Clerk, you can take the roll call.
Councilmember Kelly,
No.
Councilmember Quinn,
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander,
Yes.
Councilmember Kritz. Oh, I'm sorry.
Memory's not here.
Councilmember Salberg,
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks,
Yes.
Councilmember Noon,
Yes.
Vice President Sackett,
Yes.
President Jackson.
Yes, that's 7 yeses and 1 no. The minutes are approved. I'm looking. Let's see. It's the panelists. Yeah, I don't see him out there. Give it a couple minutes.
Council President, maybe we take a small, like a 3-minute recess?
Chrissy,
Yeah.
I
Lisa,
have a suggestion. If Chrissy could bring him, let him join as an attendee and then make him a panelist?
We can do that.
Isn't that how you got him on last time?
And Ms.
Yeah.
Clipperton, didn't we
Yeah.
once have Mr. Giaccofano use Mrs.
go ahead and dial in. You know what, Mr. Kelly, you're unbelievable. So yeah, can you have him join
That
in
was
as
a
an
suggestion,
attendee, Ms.
Mr. President.
Palmaria?
It was a suggestion,
Yeah, you're
Council
so
President.
You're
I've
so
said that
helpful.
before.
Yep, you're so helpful.
I love your sarcasm. So early.
Let's give it couple more minutes, everyone.
Looks like he's on.
Ray, out there?
It shows being muted.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me now?
Can hear
Yep.
you. Can you hear him?
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, so let's go back. We're going back to agenda item 6, adoption of the 2021 municipal budget. Ordinance to adopt O-21-19, ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and to establish a cap bank per NJSA 40A:40-45.14. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Quinn and Mr. Sackett. Chrissy, can you go through the public?
I have Donna Rarichik. Oh, hold on. I'm having a problem.
Joe, while we're waiting for that, I just want to let you know, nobody sent in any questions.
Okay. Thank you.
Council President, can we have Mr. Sarinelli maybe speak first so that the people may have some questions to follow?
No.
Okay.
I'm
There you go.
sorry, Donna Rarichik?
Yes, ma'am. I don't have any comments about it.
Thank you. Jim Waters?
No comment, thank you.
Tim and Bruce?
How do I unmute myself?
I don't know.
You're talking. We can hear you.
Oh, never mind. We have nothing. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Lily Sweet?
No comments, thank you.
Patricia Degnan?
No comment, thank you.
Patrick Egan?
No comment. Thank you.
And that is it.
Okay, and then I'll allow 5 minutes of council discussion. Anybody have anything?
You know what, just throw one question, maybe Mr. Serenelli, you can tell us about the cap bank and the reason for a cap bank. Mr. Serenelli?
Would you like me to proceed?
I
Sure,
would, yeah.
go ahead. You can briefly give us explanation for Mr. Kelly.
It's
Well,
not bad for the public, Mr. Jackson. And then
Whatever, Mr.
just-
Kelly, you're using up Mr. Serenelli's time. Go ahead, Mr.
Well,
Serenelli.
I think we would give him more time if necessary,
Go ahead. No, I'll do what I want. Go
obviously.
ahead, Mr. Serenelli.
So the cap bank is something that's been allowed statutorily for, I don't know, probably 20 or so, 25 years. It's not, there's no money going into a bank. It just allows you to set aside in a notation that should you have other urgent needs in the next 2 years, it allows you to go back and use the difference between what you actually budgeted and the current maximum cap amount. I don't recall you using it in any period recently, but you know, as the pandemic being witness to a circumstance where an unusual expense could incur, you know, if something bad really happened, you know, there have been circumstances where towns do go back and use their cap bank, and it's the only way to record it and keep it. And after 2 years, that memo is gone and your bank is gone.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Mr. Serenelli, could you just explain what would be an unusual circumstance for an increase? Like for instance, just so the public have a better understanding.
Well, you know, usually it's something catastrophic. I've seen it be where, you know, there was a catastrophic event. It could be something like a shooting, an assault, an attack, some unusual legal circumstance comes to rise, you know, where extraordinary expenses might be incurred that were above and beyond the norm.
And is there a limit to the increase?
Yeah, 3.5% would be the maximum amount allowed. And you can only bank the difference between what you've actually used this year and what the 3.5% max is.
Thank you, Mr. Serenelli.
Any other questions? Clerk, you can take the roll call.
Councilmember Kelly,
No.
Councilmember Quinn,
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander,
Yes.
Councilmember Salberg,
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks,
Yes.
Councilmember Noon,
Yes.
Vice President Sackett,
Yes.
President Jackson,
Yes, that's 7 yeses, 1 no. Motion carries. Next is resolution R 21-62, resolution to read the 2021 operating budget by title. Can I have a motion?
Make that motion?
I'll second.
Mr. Salberg and Mr. Sackett. Clerk, you can take the roll call.
Councilmember Kelly,
No.
Councilmember Quinn,
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander,
Yes.
Councilmember Salberg,
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks,
Yes.
Councilmember Noon,
Yes.
Vice President Sackett,
Yes.
President Jackson,
Yes, that's 7 yeses, 1 no. Motion carries. Next is Resolution R 21-63, resolution to adopt the 2021 municipal budget. Be resolved by the council members of the Township of Rockaway, County of Morris, that the budget herein before set forth is hereby adopted and shall constitute an appropriation for the purposes stated of the sums therein set forth as appropriations, and the authorization of the amount of $29,464,455.00 for municipal purposes and $322,130.00 for open space, recreation, farmland, and historic preservation trust fund levy, and $1,501,449.00 for minimum library tax. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Mr. Quinn and Mr. Sackett. Clerk, if you see any members of the public?
Brian Whittick,
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
please state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, Brian Whittick, 18 North Lakeshore Drive, Rockaway. Told a friend of mine the other day that all I wanted was 10 rational people running Rockaway with some business sense who will serve the people and not serve themselves. Yeah, that's 10, including the mayor. At this point, I don't care if they're Republicans, Democrats, or from Mars or Venus. The council, the administration doesn't care about property taxes, because the $5,000 that the people make as council members covers any tax increase for you personally. And if Mr. Kritz got his way and actually raised your winnings, you could care even less if that's possible. Further, after having 3 budget meetings lasting about 5.5 hours, interviewing department heads, bantering back and forth, the council reduced the mayor's recommended budget by only 0.02%. Yes, $9,693 on over $40 million. Some other highlights. The budget's up $472,000 over last year. Property taxes are up $605,000 over last year. Retirement plans are up $251,000 over last year. General government, including $50K for legal, up $76,000. Public works up $86K. Sanitation up $59K. Stipends paid for assessment commissioners they haven't met in 15 months, while Bobbyville's $650,000 sewer assessment just sits in limbo. And what about figuring out on another tack how to get a contract with Waste Management to get trash pickup as part of our property taxes? Most towns have that. I ask anybody, oh, my property taxes are too high in my town. Do you get trash pickup? Oh yeah, we get that. What about paving my street that looks like a patchwork quilt for the last 5 years since the gas lines have been put in? These are projects that any local government should be working on. No, instead we have our pet projects, pickup basketball courts, pickleball courts, farmers markets that give away the special events fees. And by the way, Mr. Puzio's quote unquote good government that he's mentioned before equates to 1, no financial oversight. Financial Review Board was dissolved by edict in 2020. It's rid of a Financial Review Board. Well, somebody who doesn't want oversight, that's one. Virtually no separation of 2 independent branches of the government. The council and the administration work in tandem. Only Councilman Kelly ever cast a no vote, as budgets and ordinance get steamrolled through the township. As I said, we need some new blood in charge, not the same old do nothing and what's in it for me mentality. This is Rockaway, where no one cares. When I asked Commissioner John Crickus why none of his endorsements are from Rockaway, he said, well, we don't like to go there. Well, that's interesting. Remember, the residents are at the top of the town org chart. You work for us. Thank you.
Donna Rarichik,
I have no comment about it. Thank you.
Jim Waters,
No comment, thank you.
Kim and Bruce,
No comment, thank you.
Lily Sweet,
Nothing to say, thank you.
Patricia Degnan,
No comment, thank you.
Patrick Egan.
No comment, thank you.
That's it.
Okay, 5 minutes of council discussion. Go ahead.
Mr. Jackson, do we get Mr. Serenelli just to talk about the budget that's been brought to the meeting tonight? Just to talk about.
He's talked about it before at other meetings, Mr. Kelly.
He has, and you know
You
what?
just want to hear the same thing over and over again? Mr. Kelly, if you have questions, ask them.
I do, Council President. And the reason why I was making that inquiry or that suggestion was that there may have been people that attended the introduction of the budget, or I should say that didn't attend the introduction, that are attending it now. And some of the names on the open to the public, I don't recognize from being at those previous meetings. So I didn't think it would be too much for a small 2-minute.
I said there's 5 minutes of discussion. If you'd like to have that time spent by Mr. Serenelli repeating himself, you go ahead, ask him to do
I'm
it.
not waiving my right of time. I just figured that Mr. Serenelli, who works for the council, not you.
You're unbelievable. You just waste time.
Would be
That's what
okay.
you like doing, just wasting time.
Okay. Well, Mr. Serenelli, do you have anything that you want to offer at all? Mr. Serenelli?
Serenelli?
Am I authorized to proceed?
Yes.
Well, I didn't re-prepare for a formal presentation like I did for the budget introduction.
Right.
My statements were general that we talked a little bit about the history last year, and that you survived a year that was full of unusual circumstances and came out in reasonably good shape, unlike many other towns, because of the planning that has gone on for a number of years. Then I also made a statement relative to this budget, that I reviewed this budget in detail with administration, looked at some of the line items, asked a number of questions, and then I step back and look at the overall budget and try and determine if it fits within a plan to leave you in reasonably good shape next year, all things considered. And I felt that this budget does do that it's a reasonable budget, that you're not overusing revenues or fund balance to fund something for one shot, that I think, given any other unforeseen circumstances than what you've already dealt with related to the pandemic and the shutdown, I think you would end this year with this budget in a reasonably good position to go into the 2022 budget.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Jackson, thank you, Mr. Serenelli. So what I have is that, on February 9th, 11th, and 16th of 2021, we had budget meetings. On the 9th, we had an hour that we collected each other's thoughts. And then on the 11th and the 16th, we had 2 hours of each of those meetings. So a total of 5 hours we spent to reduce $10,000 from an over $40 million budget. And what bothers me the most is that there were some areas there that we could have reduced, and because of personalities and politics, it wasn't lucrative on some things. During that budget process, we did vote on the tabs and lines moving forward, and everything there for our employees was preserved through those tabs and followed through with the introduction. So I do support them. I do feel some of the employees did deserve a little bit more money for what they're doing, for the extraordinary amount of work that they do, and I believe that they're underpaid. But when we look at what we had back in 2018, the majority of the council at that particular time, Mr. Jackson, you weren't involved with that then, maybe you followed it, we reduced the budget by $1 million. We did have 4 no's on that. We had Mr. Quinn, Mr. Puzio, Freelander, and Sackett. We didn't lose any services, and we actually brought down our tax amount almost to 2014 levels. Many people had a reduction. And those who had an increase had a smaller increase, obviously, than they would originally get. But we have to thank our tax assessor and our tax assessor office for the hard work that they do of doing assessments on 2,000 to 2,500 homes to bring it up to an even level. But when we have areas where out of nowhere we have a council member that wants to raise our capital for Peterson Field, and then following that we have another council member that wants to raise it another 200,000 of a total of almost 350,000. We have no discussion, no plans, nothing to relate to validate what we need all these improvements for or this additional money for, which is really, foreshadowing increasing debt. And I don't know why we do that. I'm pro any kind of infrastructure that we need, but I know that every single one of us on this council and administration following their own home budgets wouldn't act like that or do that. You would want to know the dollars and cents and what work is being done to prepare to put money aside or borrow money or whatever it may be. And we don't seem to do that when it comes to these budgets. There's needs and wants, and sometimes it seems that our wants somewhat counter our needs and then some. And I just think that we could have done better on this. We couldn't have cut $1 million, but I believe that there was a far greater area on some spots. I mean, for one point, we had a position that we haven't funded in over 5 years, only to find out that we're funding it from hiring somebody 4 months earlier without even having a salary for that person approved by this council. I think that's reckless. And that's something that we shouldn't do. And most of the public don't know that that happens behind the scenes of some kind of backdoor agreements, or they don't attend the budget hearings that we have in February to really know what's going on. But we didn't even offer the public the ability to review the budget in any shape or form. So when they were watching us, they were lost. Department heads that were part of the budget process that was taking place, they had no clue because they don't receive any of those books either. And what was the harm to give the public some notice of what was going on, what we were talking about, and what was the dollar amounts for those line items that were taking place? Because eventually you show it to the public anyways. Just before we have this meeting, you put it online. Nothing bars us from doing that. And we didn't do it, and it was requested to do so, and you chose not to. So I think the transparency of that stuff, we just could have done better on that. We had $35,000 in the crime reporting system that the chief didn't even have any communications about. So it seemed like it was a staged amount of money just to take away. Then you have an attorney solicit himself to increase his own legal budget, 50 grand for matters that are targeting one person that are covered by insurance. And you guys fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. So it really doesn't matter to you. And for you guys, each individual one, like Mr. Wittick had mentioned, Mr. Kritz wanted to increase their salaries almost by 60%. Any increase that you guys get, you're covered by your own salaries that you get here. And by the way, many of you do all your work for the council while you're working for your main employer, Mr. Jackson. And your employer happens to be a contractor of Rockaway Township. It's sad. You get compensated while working in one place.
Council President,
Here we
5
are.
minutes.
Mr. Kelly, your time's up, and your false
Here we are.
accusations and political banter are
You don't-
disgusting. So
You don't
keep in mind that any insurance coverage we have, we also have deductible we have to pay. So keep spending the taxpayers' dollars like you do and waste them. Mr. Mayor, did you have something you wanted to say? You can be recognized for 2 minutes.
Yes, thank you. In regards to the budget, we talk about time spent. The truth of the matter is that there was the actual budget meetings, but most of the council people had their books and had questions, and they would call into the administration and we would work with them. So the budget meetings that were with the public to ascertain answers that we had to have, that things that were asked, during the public meetings, many of the council people called up myself, Pat Seeger. We brainstormed. They asked questions about the budget books because obviously you had them before the budget meeting. So that 5 hours really wasn't 5 hours. And I appreciate many of you called in and we spent time with you answering those questions. As far as the department heads are integral. So when we say the department heads don't know what's going on, they don't have a budget book. The budget process starts in June, July. and they start forming the budget, we call in the department heads and we sit down with them and ask them what their needs are in terms of, what they need as far as to operate their particular section. So the department heads are the people who actually formulate their own budgets, that they come to us and we sit down with them collaboratively. Secondly, in terms of Peterson, take a look at Peterson. It's archaic. The basketball courts were put in somewhere late 70s in 1981. They had a drain in the middle of them. The insurance company came out a couple of years ago. They had to be shut down by the insurance company because they were unsafe. The tennis courts that we tore down, that we're replacing, haven't been open for 3 or 4 years. We're the largest town in terms of square footage, as far as acreage and land size. We're the third largest as far as residents, and we don't even have tennis courts that are functional where people can't play. I think just driving by Peterson screams improvements, and we're making those improvements. In terms of agendas, no one here I see has an agenda except to make the town better. So I don't know what Mr. Kelly's talking about in terms of legal as well, that the town attorneys put $50,000, they fell for it hook, line, and sinker. The legal budget increase doesn't just go towards Mr. Yachafano and Perone. It could go towards any area. We have to anticipate that issues may happen. So I don't know where Mr. Kelly's coming up with these conclusions, where he's drawing them from, but they're just not true. There's a lot of things that are peppered in there that are not accurate at all. So thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Clerk, you can take the roll call now.
Councilmember Kelly,
No.
Councilmember Quinn,
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander,
Yes.
Councilmember Salberg,
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks,
Yes.
Councilmember Noon,
Yes.
Vice President Sackett,
Yes.
President Jackson,
Yes, that's 7 yeses and 1 no. The budget is passed. Next is D, ordinances to adopt O-21-16 ordinance providing for the undertaking of watershed assessment, planning, and studies by the Township of Rockaway in the County of Morris, New Jersey, and appropriating $175,525, therefore constituting proceeds of a grant from the Highlands Water Protection and Planning Council. Can I have a motion?
Motion.
So moved.
Second.
So Mr. Kelly and Mr. Quinn. Or you go through the public.
Donna Rarichip,
No comment.
Jim Leonardis, Jim Leonardis,
Go to the next one.
Jim Waters,
No comment, thank you.
Kim and Bruce,
No comment, thank you.
Lily Sweet,
No comment, thank you.
Patricia Degnan,
Patricia Degnan, 88 Valley View Drive. I'm very glad to see that the township is taking advantage of the grant from the Highlands, and I hope it's very successful. Thank you.
Patrick Egan,
No comment, thank you.
William Degnan,
William Degnan, 88 Valley View Drive. I'm very glad that this council works to fix sporting facilities in our community, because we have the worst fields in the county.
Mr. Degnan, I apologize, but public comment at this point should be specifically to this ordinance, O 2116.
Yeah, we'll have open to the public soon and you can make your comments then.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Chrissy, if you go back up to the top, looks like somebody joined.
I thought I saw that too. Thank you.
Yeah.
Al Cerulo,
No comment, thank you.
and that's it.
Everybody, 5 minutes of council discussion.
Council President,
Yes.
I was just wondering if we do have anything yet where this money is earmarked for, any particular landmass or water?
I don't know, Pat, if that's a question for you or.
Council President, may I step in?
Absolutely.
Yes, this is a grant opportunity for 11 surface water bodies identified within the township. The criteria was based on DEP standards. And so, yeah, 11 water bodies are going to be studied and analyzed as part of this grant opportunity.
That's great news. Thank you.
Perfect.
Anything else?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Mrs. Ferrante,
Yes.
would one of those bodies be Park Lake?
Yes, one of them is Park Lake.
And what are the study that you think we're going to do for that body?
So as outlined by the scope of work as submitted to the Highlands Council by Princeton Hydro, it is analyticals related to more organic matters and nitrogens, phosphorus, those can, I wouldn't say contaminants, but those contaminants of concern and their loading in the different water bodies. What is natural versus what is an overload to the system, and potential mitigation strategies to address them.
So if we get some of those analyticals that we have in there, whether some of them were created by nature or some of them were by man, do we take a course of action to remediate or remedy the issue going forward? And the reason, no other body of water is no more important than any other body of water, obviously. But in Park Lake, where we have that's there, we do have our neighboring town that's doing so much work to their side of it. And I would hate to see something from our side that could somewhat hinder or reduce the longevity of those repairs or maintenance that the borough's doing, and as well as our own place, keeping it up to par. So is that something that could take place if results came back that were not in our favor or not in the favor of the condition of that body of water?
That the goal of this study is to provide a baseline and identify areas of concern, areas where there is a higher level of loading, not just at Parks Lake, but other lakes that have public access to it. So it will identify a host of potential hotspots, I should say, and then mitigation strategies, of which we will come back to the table and potentially identify grant opportunities to mitigate them, to go and resolve any identified problems.
And when you say loading, just so that the public understand, that would be like a problem that would, let's say, for instance, an area that was heavily fertilized in this Chestnut region or Legion Hill or whatnot, that would be dumping all of those fertilizers into Park Lake. Would that be an example of loading?
Correct. There is background, whatever the acceptable, however Princeton Hydro deems an acceptable natural level of loading versus higher than sustainable.
Right. Thank you.
Anything else from anybody? Okay, clerk, can you take the roll call?
Councilmember Kelly,
Yes.
Councilmember Quinn,
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander,
Yes.
Councilmember Sauberg,
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks,
Yes.
Councilmember Noon,
Yes.
Vice President Sackett,
Yes.
President Jackson,
Yes, that's 8 yeses. Motion carries. Next is O-21-17, bond ordinance appropriating $3,052,500 and authorizing the issuance of $2,660,700 bonds or notes of the township for various improvements or purposes authorized to be undertaken by the Township of Rockaway in the County of Morris, New Jersey. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Quinn and Mr. Friedlander. Clerk, you go public discussion.
Al Cerullo,
No comment, thanks.
Donna Rarichik,
No.
Jim Leonardis,
No comment.
Jim Waters,
No comment, thank you.
Kim and Bruce.
Yeah, what are the bonds going to be used for, and what is our rating on the bonds?
Bruce, if you could please just provide me with your name and address for the record.
Bruce Kleindienst, 8 Nokomis Avenue.
Thank you.
Ms. Palmieri, if you want to address that.
Sure. Our bond rating is currently a AA1, which is just one step below the AAA bond rating. The purpose of the ordinances are listed in the ordinances, but they consist of various improvements throughout the town, purchases of vehicles. We're going to be doing work on Queens Road, also through a grant. There's going to be some building upgrades, some recreation improvements. And again, they're all listed in the bond ordinance itself, which is available online if you want to take a look at more detail.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Lily Sweet,
No comment, thank you.
Patricia Degnan,
No comment, thank you.
Patrick Egan,
No comment, thank you.
William Degnan.
No comment, thank you.
That's it.
Okay, 5 minutes of council discussion.
Ms. Palmieri? Hello, Ms. Palmieri?
I'm here.
On our bond rating, when was the last time that we were AAA?
I don't believe we're ever AAA. Given the fact that our demographic mainly do the Rockaway Mall. I don't think we're going to try, but I don't know that we'll ever actually achieve a AAA. It's going to be.
And what do you feel that would be a possibility to achieve that AAA? Like, what would we need to do as a council or administration to potentially achieve that number or that rating, I should say?
Well, one of the suggestions from the bond rating agency when we had our last rating was to try and anticipate a little less fund balance year after year. And another was to continue with our reassessment program and bringing our values of the properties current. So we are on our way to using their guidance as to achieve a AAA.
So, I mean, we do that now, though. I mean, our assessor's office has always,
right.
Mark did a phenomenal job, and I'm sure Mrs. Johnson's going to follow the same suit with that. But as far as the fund balance, when you say about less fund balance, we have our auditor that talks about increasing our fund balance. We also
No. He's not talking about, he's talking about increasing fund balance. That's true, but anticipating less to balance the budget.
Okay.
That's one avenue that they're looking to see.
And in order to achieve that, how would we do that?
Well, if you increase taxes, you can decrease the amount of fund balance you anticipate. We don't all want that. So it would be trying to find other, revenue sources to offset the budget.
Or would it be possible to make additional cuts too?
Certainly.
Okay, thank you.
And what's the benefit if we get to AAA, Ms. Palmieri?
It's just that you would more than likely receive a lower interest rate on the bonds when you do go out for issuance. Right now, the rates are so low, we're doing very well. I don't think every time I put together a note sale, I'm surprised and happy with all the rates that, we've been receiving based on the AA1.
Okay. You sure in 2018 we weren't AAA? We must have been getting close to it in 2018. No?
Well, AA1 is the highest rating
Oh,
before you reach AAA. So
Okay.
we're almost right there. Yeah.
Hey, clerk, you can take the roll call.
Councilmember Kelly,
No.
Councilmember Quinn,
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander,
Yes.
Councilmember Salberg,
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks,
Yes.
Councilmember Noon,
Yes.
Vice President Sackett,
Yes.
President Jackson,
Yes, that's 7 yeses, 1 no. Motion carries. Next is O-21-18, bond ordinance appropriating $725,000 and authorizing the issuance of $685,000 in bonds or notes of the Township of Rockaway of the Township for various improvements or purposes authorized to be undertaken in and by the Township of Rockaway in the County of Morris, New Jersey for the water supply and distribution system of the township.
Motion.
Motion, Mr. Kelly,
Second.
Quinn. Clerk, you can go through public hearing.
Al Cerullo,
No comment.
Donna Rarick,
No, thank you.
Jim Leonardis,
No comment. Thank you.
Jim Waters,
No comment. Thank you.
Kim and Bruce,
No comment, thank you.
Lily Sweet,
No comment, thank you.
Patricia Degnan,
Pat Degnan, 88 Valley View Drive. The payments that get made to pay back these bonds, do they actually come out of the water department rather than out of the township taxes?
Go ahead, Ms. Palmieri.
Yes, the water utility is a standalone utility. So the debt service on this particular bond is coming out of the water utility and does not affect the tax rate at all.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Patrick Egan,
No comment, thank you.
William Degnan,
No comment, thank you.
Okay, 5 minutes of council discussion. Okay,
Mrs.
clerk.
Palmieri?
Oh, go ahead.
Mrs. Palmieri?
She's there.
I can't
I'm
hear her.
here.
Oh, there you
I'm
go.
here. Yep.
With the bond orders that we have of, for the appropriation of the 725 and authorizing the issuance of 685, is there any way we can reduce the need for some of these bonds with some of the money that we have in other ordinances within the township for some of these improvements?
Well, we do look at that. We look at that every year. So these are specific to specific needs. And, we go through these with the appropriate department heads and superintendents, and this is how we come up with it.
Like for instance, we have a lot of money that's set aside for the water department building that's going to be over towards the White Meadow Lake A field. And there's been discussions in the past that there's other avenues of reducing the expenditure of a building by going with a pole barn style building, because it's, a lot of that technology is more acceptable in the construction business now, where we would reduce the need for that money that we have set aside. At any point, could we move or redirect that money to cover some of these improvements without having to bond any of that money?
Well, I don't want to get involved in the nature of the building. I don't really think that's part of where my expertise is. But anything that is appropriated for the construction of a building, depending on the kind of building it is, it'll determine what the useful life of that building is, and it'll determine the way that these bond ordinances are structured. So I think the notion now is to go with a building that is not the pole barn style that you were talking about. So they are based on a useful life of, whatever the structure of that building is.
Right. So in other words, we do have, there is an avenue or an alternative of facilitating what the water department needs with a different style building, far less than a brick and mortar style building that they're doing. If we were to choose to go that route with the less financially evasive method, could we use that money that's different that we would be saving and apply it to other improvements in the water department?
Yes, in other words, I think what you're saying is if you went with the pole barn style and you did not need as much money appropriated, which you have in the past, those ordinances that have already been adopted could be repurposed, again, through another ordinance that you would, as a council, would vote on to change the initial purpose for what that money, was set aside originally for.
And have
We've
we had
done that
any,
in the past.
has administration had any discussions about that, right, that you're aware of?
I think you would better off talking to
Yeah,
the
you'd have to
administration.
speak to, if you want to ask those questions, direct them to the administration.
Council President, could you recognize Mayor Puzia? I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
He's recognized.
Go ahead, Mr. Puzia. I'm sorry.
It's an administrative function, and just to remind you of that, what we're going to build, and I'll certainly be working with our director of the Department of Public Works and some other folks in the town to see what's most cost effective for what we're going to build. So that will definitely be taken into consideration.
I mean, as of right now, currently, has there been any discussion?
There's always discussion. I've made it clear that we're going to be putting a building. Obviously, the council and you being part of the council knows that we're intending to put a building. We've applied for DEP permits. I've spoken about it at many meetings about erecting a structure over by the Salt Dome. And yes, cost is always an issue. We look at our options, and are always discussions prior to us going out to bid and deciding on what we're going to do.
I appreciate that. I was really focused on just the pole barn versus brick and mortar. Has that been a conversation to save money?
I answered that.
No, you didn't. I didn't hear you going one way or the other, whether it be a pole barn or a brick and mortar. Mr. Puzia.
I said that we're having discussions to see what's most cost effective. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson.
Okay, any other comments? Not, clerk, take the roll call.
Councilmember Kelly,
Yes.
Councilmember Quinn,
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander,
Yes.
Councilmember Councilmember Salberg,
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks,
Yes.
Councilmember Noon,
Yeah.
Vice President Sackett,
Yes.
President Jackson.
Yes, that's 8 yeses, motion carries. We've already approved the minutes, so we're going to go to open to the public next. First, I'll ask Mrs. Seeger if we've gotten any emails as of right now.
No, President Jackson.
Okay. Okay, Chrissy, you can go through the members of the public.
Al Cerullo.
No, nothing, thank you.
And really quick, I would just like to remind all members of the public, if you do wish to speak, please just state your name and address for the record before you go into your comments. Donna Rarichik?
No, thank you.
Jim Leonardis?
Nothing, Christine, thank you.
Jim Waters?
Yes, Jim Waters, 48 Seneca Avenue in the township. And I had previously looked over the agenda. It didn't appear to be anything that was particularly contentious on there, so I thought I'd keep my big mouth shut. But then I'm going to ask you to bear with me. I'm 73. I make new friends every day, so I may not get to all 3 things that I'd planned on. There's a certain self-aggrandizing individual. It's difficult to listen to time after time. And one particular thing that I've been hearing. It'd be characterized as a lie after lie after lie about this $1 million that the previous council saved by their due diligence and their application of their business acumen to the township budget, when in fact all they did was go to what was effectively a surplus account and return $1 million of the taxpayers' own money. They saved not $1. They moved it from the right pocket to the left pocket, and I would appreciate various people not making that distinction, not telling that lie again. It's getting very tiresome. And secondly, an individual who's a self-acknowledged business person should really understand how insurance does work. Insurance companies don't invent money to pay claims. The two things that operate, most insurance policies, as ours does with a reciprocal, have deductibles, which means every time a claim is made against our insurance carrier, we pay a certain portion of it. Other claims are not covered due to various exclusions, which means we pay them all. And lastly, if your claims costs get high enough where they exceed what has been anticipated for you, then your insurance carrier is going to raise your rate. So the thought that you can keep filing 100 OPRA requests and multiple ridiculous suits against the township, and it has no effect on what township taxpayers have to pay is a ludicrous statement, and the individual making those statements should know better. Had a third thing, but I've forgotten it, so we'll move on, and thank you for your time.
Thanks, Mr. Walters.
Kim and Bruce?
No comment, thank you.
Lily Sweet?
No comment, thank you.
Patricia Degnan?
Patricia Degnan, 88 Valley View Drive. I'm getting a little bit frustrated and annoyed that every time this township wants to make some improvements to our basically only recreational fields, that there is one particular council person that is always against it. I mean, I live in White Meadow Lake. We are always repairing something in White Meadow Lake. If you don't repair the stuff, it gets in disrepair and cannot be used. And then you have lawsuits because people get hurt. It's time to fix our fields.
Thank you, Ms. Degnan.
Patrick Egan?
No comment, thank you.
William Degnan?
William Degnan, 88 Valley View Drive. I agree with my mom. I have lived in this town my entire life. There are always only been ever 3 baseball fields that this community ever uses. DBO, White Meadow Lake, and Peterson Field. Peterson Field was in disarray more than 3 years ago under another council. This council is trying to do something about it. The basketball courts were built for hockey. We're building actual basketball courts. We're fixing the tennis courts that needed to be repaired. We need a playground for the little kids when parents are bringing their kids to baseball games and softball games and football games, so the little kids can play, have some activities for them, because little kids don't play football and baseball when their bigger brothers and sisters are doing the sports. It's about time this council works together, not filing lawsuits all the time against this council and this community. I am sick and tired of a certain member of this council holding back on something that have been done more than 10 years ago. Enough is enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Seeger, are there any other, have you checked the email, did anything come in?
No, sir.
Okay. Next, we'll go to ordinances to introduce O-21-20, an ordinance amending Chapter 14 entitled Property Maintenance of the General Ordinances of the Township of Rockaway. Can I have a motion? Mr. Kelly.
So moved.
Mr. Quinn. Clerk, you could take the roll call.
Councilmember Kelly,
Yes.
Councilmember Quinn,
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander,
Yes.
Councilmember Salberg,
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks,
Yes.
Councilmember Noon,
Yes.
Vice President Sackett,
Yes.
President Jackson,
Yes. Next, we have the consent, motion carries. 8 yeses, motion carries. Next, we have the consent agenda, R21-64, R21-65, R21-66, R21-67, R21-68, R21-69, R21-70, R21-71, R21-72, R21-73, and R21-74.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
I'll second it.
Mr. Quinn and Mr. Friedlander.
Council President, I have a motion.
Go ahead, make your motion.
Just to, I don't know if to make a motion, even remove these two. I just think that we have great rates for our sanitary sewer. And I didn't know if Mrs. Palmieri just wanted to mention of our rates compared to other municipalities. And on which is R2168, and on R2166, just want to make confirmation that no council member is a recipient of these benefits that would potentially be in violation of conflict of interest to participate in voting on that one. But my motion is R2171, R2172, and R2173, just to have small discussion and vote on them separately.
Anybody want to second that motion?
Mr. Kelly, could you please just repeat those resolution numbers for me? You cut out
Yeah,
a little bit
it
on
was
my
just-
end. I apologize.
It was just R2171. And I had just a question on the one document that we have on this resolution that we were handed. And in R2172, again, I had a question on one page of the document. And I'm sorry, 2172. And then R2173, just a question about the material.
Anybody want to second his motion?
It's just talking about material.
Okay,
and
take the roll call.
You guys are sad.
You're sad. You're
Yeah.
you're a sad little man. Go ahead, clerk. You take the roll call.
Councilmember Kelly,
No.
Councilmember Quinn,
I'm voting yes on everything except R2166.
we can.
It's either yes or no,
If you
Mr.
need to
Quinn.
vote, yeah, it's either yes or no. If you need to vote separately, we need to remove it from the consent agenda.
Vote yes on everything.
Councilmember Friedlander,
Yes.
Councilmember Salberg,
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks,
Yes.
Councilmember Noon,
Yes.
Vice President Sackett,
Yes.
President Jackson,
Yes, that's 7 yeses, 1 no. Motion carries. Next, we have,
Council President, can I be recognized?
yeah, for 1 minute, Mr. Mayor.
Yep. I just want to remind the entire council, I know Mr. Kelly has questions. He can feel free to email me, myself or Pat, his questions. We'll be glad to answer them. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
You have it.
Next, we have appointments of the council, appointments within council consent. First, we have fires, Louis Irizarry and Daniel Ernanu.
Make a motion.
Mr.
I'll
Kelly.
second it.
Is that the correct pronunciation?
I'm not sure. I don't know if
It's probably Umano.
Umano, thank you. I didn't hear who seconded. I'm sorry.
I did, Council President.
Okay, thank you, Manny. So Mr. Kelly, Mr. Friedlander. Clerk, you can take the roll call?
Councilmember Kelly,
Yes.
Councilmember Quinn,
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander,
Yes.
Councilmember Salberg,
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks,
Yes.
Councilmember Noon,
Yeah.
Vice President Sackett,
Yes.
President Jackson,
Yes, that's 8 yeses. The appointments carry. Next are EMS, the same two individuals, Luis and Daniel.
So moved.
Motion, Mr. Quinn
Second to them too.
and Mr. Friedlander. Clerk, you can take the roll call?
Councilmember Kelly,
Yes.
Councilmember Quinn,
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander,
Yes.
Councilmember Salberg,
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks,
Yes.
Councilmember Noon,
Yes.
Vice President Sackett,
Yes.
President Jackson,
Yes, that's 8 yeses. The appointments carry. Next, I'm gonna, as I've been doing in the past, combine old business, new business, and reports and allow every council member 15 minutes. Mr. Salberg, we'll start with you. You're muted if you're talking. Still can't
My
hear you.
apologies. Not my apologies. Computer took
There
a
we go.
glitch there. Yep. Sorry about that. All right. So thank you, Council President. Yeah, I wanted to thank some council members for wearing red. And I wanted to explain to everyone, why we asked them to do that. April is National Organ and Tissue Donor Awareness Month. Each year, thousands of lives are saved through the gift of organ and tissue donation. Our family first came to know about organ donation in 1995 when my sister-in-law was a donor. And 23 years later, my wife became a recipient of a heart. Our community learned more about organ and tissue donation when former Mayor Datchison was a donor after his untimely passing. Sadly, each year, many people die while waiting for life-saving transplants. On March 29th, an 8-year-old from Texas with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy died after waiting 745 days for a heart transplant. This boy's name was Camden Schonert, and today we wear red in his honor. He left behind grieving parents, a little brother, extended family and friends who will miss him greatly. While it's a difficult conversation to have, please let your family and friends know what your wish is to become a donor hero if the circumstance occurs. Sign your donor card, mark your driver's license. Every 9 minutes, someone is added to the transplant list. Only 3 in 1,000 people die in a manner that permits organ donation. One donor can save up to 8 lives. So be a donor, be someone's hero. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Salberg. Ms. Noon?
I have no report this evening. Thank
Mr. Brooks?
Thank you, Council President. Just want to piggyback on what Mr. Salberg, Councilman Salberg said. My niece has actually been a organ recipient several times. So anytime that somebody does that, it's a very brave thing, whether it is through a network or from somebody that lost their lives. So once again, just want to piggyback on what Mr. Salberg said. Also, just wanted to give a good response and shout out to those that are getting ready to play spring sports. The weather's getting nicer. Everybody's coming out to participate, and also just get a good walk in there. Just be conscious about your separation and the requirements that the state does, and everyone have a good time. And that's it for this month.
You look like a different person, literally, without your beard.
Thank you. My wife is very happy.
Mr. Kelly.
A couple of things here. Real quick, just to comment on Mr. Walters and Mrs. Degman's comment. First of all, when we have insurance to cover those things, and obviously deductible is nowhere near what it costs to actually pay whatever claim that it may be for that. And I figured him being an insurance background, he would know better. And we didn't take fund generators and cut everything that was there in 2018 and 2019. 2019, I think we cut $500,000 out of the budget, and all 9 members of the council at that time voted in favor for it. And I don't hear Mr. Waters crying then. As far as Mrs. Degman, I'm not against anything when it comes to the park and rec and the playground. The amount of spending that goes on there, I've made some comparisons to other towns just with the basketball courts, Randolph being $127,000. Just recently, Rockaway Borough off of Farview had just done their basketball courts over again, 2 regulation courts, new backboards and posts, asphalt, lining, and everything else. And they spent less than $20,000 on that. And it's a really nice little area that's over there. But I do remember when the POA had their fields in disarray, and there was an offering to Mrs. Degman in the POA to have labor and equipment and everything else and trucking done for nothing. And they didn't have funds, nor did they take care of the fields at that time. So it's funny how on one hand she says against an individual that's going against recreation, which is completely false. I'm just concerned about the over amount of money of the $957,000 that we spent on a basketball court and a tennis court, where previously, before this new council, we actually made an agreement to come down to $250,000. And we had spent money with Keller Kirkpatrick on plans and cost analysis, and we've changed those firms to other firms. And I just think we could have done a little bit more with the money by doing our own improvements on some of the levels of construction with our DPW workers that are there, like the other towns do. Old business I have, we received a memo from Mr. Perrone back on the 26th of March, kind of addressing the 4069A 37-1 issue that we had. And with that, I think the memo couldn't be more misapplied. Mr. Perrone had mentioned that this is the way that we do to get records for that, and that's not really the case. The one section of that code, which ironically wasn't provided to us with this memo, it clearly says any council member may at any time require a report of any aspect of the administration or government of the municipality by making a written request to the mayor. Now, when I had mentioned that to Mr. Perrone, that I did this in the past 2 years ago, he said that he never knew anything about it. But when we look at past emails and records, not only was it sent to the mayor and never responded in regards to providing the report that was requested under that statute, Mr. Perrone said he had no knowledge of it, but ironically, he CC'd on those emails and billing records. The Yachafano and Perrone town attorneys charged the township, the taxpayers, for reviewing that request. So, you know, I don't understand why it's so difficult for records just to be provided. And even when it comes to Oprah is on a requirement that has to be made in order to achieve documents that are public. Once you make somebody fill out an Oprah request, because I have an email from the clerk, from the administration, not willing to give me information or materials, and recommended that I made an Oprah request. Instead, you chastised me and Mr. Waters with his Oprah request to find out how many Oprah requests that I made. It's unnecessary. But because of the way this government works, it's a prime example as to why Oprah was developed, was to force and compel government to give records to somewhat shed light to the public of what's going on. And as a council member, I have every right to look at financial records and documentation, and I shouldn't need to go through an Oprah request, but unfortunately I have to. The other thing for old business, we had an ice cream truck that came over to the township on the 5th of April in the later part of the day. And I was wondering why we didn't invite a lot of the blue collar employees, DPW, the water department. Was there a reason why there was only a selected group that received ice cream for free from the ice cream truck from a member of the administration? Can anybody answer that?
Answer that in my report.
Thank you. And then the other thing is, in the past, we've always had something with the Easter egg and Easter bunny for Easter. Was there a reason why we didn't do anything or have anything?
Cover that in your report, Mr. Mayor. I know we did something.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
We
Mr.
did
Kelly.
something, Mr. Jackson, we did something in Rockaway?
Yeah,
Did you let all of us know?
it's not my job to let you know, Mr. Kelly. Maybe
Okay.
instead of wondering what's going on with the ice cream man, you should pay attention.
Well, I just think it's unfair that
God, Mr. Kelly, you're wasting your time.
I'm not wasting my time. I just think it's unfair we didn't
All right.
offer to everybody.
Ice cream for ice
The other
cream.
thing is the sponsor committee that Mr. Kritz had spoken about. Do we have the members of the committee? Because I don't remember that being formed through the council. Mr. Jackson, do you know who the members are?
Do your report, Mr. Kelly. This isn't questions and answers with Tucker.
I thought just maybe being the council president, you would inform the council of information. This is why Oprah requests come to your way. For new business, I was wondering if maybe, since the eligibility for everybody to be able to get access to the vaccine, if maybe we could provide additional sites other than the mega site that we have at Sears online or our website or Facebook, so that people can get a better avenue of other areas that are providing these vaccines. I don't know if there's a potentiality that maybe we can actually help those who maybe can't get to these sites, where maybe perhaps our nurses can administer these things at home. I know that Denville had provided this access for their employees in town. And I don't know, since we had testing of COVID at Copeland School, maybe we can hold a small vaccination area within the township or within a school building that are there. So it's just an idea maybe we can look at. I don't know if it's something that's being handled now. I haven't heard of anything from our health department officials. The other thing I had for new business is about improvements on school property paid with municipal funds. I know that Mr. Kritz has been very vocal about lighting in certain areas of the schools. And I know that that's not our property. We've already dealt with that during the budget about funding a playground on the administration school property off of Green Pond Road in Hibernia. Is it customary that we pay for improvements on school property? Mr. Jackson or Mr. Mayor?
I'll answer that in my report.
Mr. Mayor, is there a reason why you want to answer me so we can have a little bit of dialogue? And because you may actually say something, I might have a question, and Mr. Jackson will never let me ask a question when you're talking.
Mr. Kelly, it's as Mr. Jackson said, it's not question and answer time. This is a report.
Mr. Puzio, this is the only time that we can have a communication as a whole, so we don't violate OPMA. And this is the time our council meetings, they're made
Mr.
for
Kelly,
that. So
you've been here almost 4 years now. I've told you numerous times, send me an email, contact me. You can
I'm
contact
asking
the
you
other
on the
council
record,
people.
Mr. Puzio. For some
and
reason,
then-
you're afraid.
and then-
For
not
some reason,
afraid.
I have.
Mr.
the floor.
Kelly,
You're
Mr.
talking-
Mayor,
I'm gonna-
Mr. Mayor, please stop. Let's let him finish his
Thank
report.
you. And as far as the my report, bear with me 1 second, Council President. I just wanted to make a mention that the opening day that had taken place, there was a lot of anglers and fishermen over in Hibernia at the firehouse. Prior to that, where it was catch and release, there was one individual with his son that caught almost over 100 fish of a catch and release in 4-hour time frame that they were hitting so hard over there. We have the aeration is taking place over in Lake Telemark. They did a fundraiser to achieve some funds to make the lake a little bit better of an attempt to do it with aeration. We also have on the 24th of April is our cleanup that we do yearly for the spring. And I was wondering, and maybe Mrs. Ferrante can answer this with permission from the mayor. Is there a possibility that we can do cleanups in other areas of the town? We have a husband and wife team in Telemark that sometimes don't go down to the Park Lake area, but they do it on the roadway on Green Pond Road and the breezeway and whatnot. And if there is other areas that people do, can we coordinate a pickup where they leave their bags of garbage that are tied up and contained, so our DPW or other departments could pick up that trash and dispose of it accordingly? Is that something, Mrs. Ferrante, that we can do?
We can do anything.
I don't think
Mr.
Ms. Ferrante has any, I don't think Ms. Ferrante has anything to do with it. I think that Clean Communities does the cleanups, and it's run out of a member of the health department.
Well, we don't have a member of the health department here, so I just thought maybe engineering might have a little bit of an idea with that, especially with the environment.
There's a phone number, President Jackson.
Go ahead, Ms. Seeger.
There's a phone number to call Miss Salerno, Kara, and if they have a suggestion like that, all they have to do is call her, and I'm sure she'll make it happen.
Okay, and could you make that happen now? Like, could you, I mean, I'm asking you on the record here, is that something we can look into?
Can you have the people who are interested in doing that area, please call her?
Okay. And then last, the reason why I had some questions on the consent agenda, and I'll make this very, very quick, Mr. Jackson. When we were dealing with the busing, there was a document that said that there was no subcontractor for the busing for the children in summer programs that were here. But yet in this contract that we have, it shows that there is a third-party contractor for the busing. And I was just wondering if anybody had caught that. I don't know if it was an error by accident or a misprint of some sort. But it does state that in that record that's there. The other question I had with the refund that we're getting from the contractor doing the basketball and tennis courts, there's a $2,000 projection of cost for cutting basically 4 lines in the asphalt. And to do that, I'm not sure what the depth is, but to cut asphalt, it's not very difficult. Even if we had to rent a piece of equipment, it's very inexpensive to do so. And I was wondering if there's a possibility that we could have our own DPW do that. It's very simple for what they are indicating between the 2 courts, or I'm sorry, between the 3 courts, there would be 2 lines cut. And then across the tennis courts, there would be the 2 lines that would be cut. And I just thought maybe we could do that ourselves for a savings of that, since we didn't use our DPW workers for other savings amongst the demolition of those courts. Is that a possibility, maybe? No? And then the last thing was the cannabis. We have the cannabis ordinance, I'm sorry, the fees here. And the amount of cost for the application, for the initial application, it's $2,500. For a renewal, it's $1,500. And then, of course, for the license themselves, depending on what they are, there are $5,000 to $10,000 for that licensing that's taking place. As far as the $2,500 or the $1,500 for the renewal, what is the review that the township is taking to generate the reason for that such high cost? You know, I remember when we were talking before, and maybe Mr. Walters, when he was speaking about charging individuals a higher amount or a lesser amount for the special events permit. When I questioned about the costs, he wasn't happy about that question. And here we have a cost of $2,500 for a review. And I was just wondering, what is entailed in that review for that much money to be charged? Mrs. Ferrante? As an engineer, Mrs. Ferrante, are you allowed to answer?
Mr. Kelly, Mr. Jackson, may I speak?
Yep.
Yep. We did a comparison to similar towns that are moving in this direction, and we looked at costs and fees associated.
I understand that you looked at the cost.
The the same, I'm not done, Mr. Kelly, please don't
Oh, I'm
interrupt
sorry,
me.
because you paused for a moment.
Thank
there.
you, thank you. Yes, because I wanted the council to absorb and the public to get a,
It wasn't
absorb
that
what I
difficult
said.
to absorb, Mr. Mayor, but thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you. Please be quiet for a minute.
Don't-
What I tried to do is same thing I did with the special events ordinance permit. I spoke to the vendor. We want to generate business in town. We don't want to hinder business. So if we underprice or overprice, it's not good. We try to come in and we try to be comparable to what other towns are doing. The same process that I followed with the farmers market. I looked at what other towns were charging. We didn't want to price the vendors or price the organizer out. So we're doing a comparison to make ourselves competitive, but still remain reasonable in the space that we're operating in.
Anybody want to tell him he's muted?
Mr. Mayor, I thank you, Mr. Jackson. I do appreciate you responding to that, but you didn't answer the question. All I asked was, what was entailed into the $2,500 or the $1,500 fee? You know, you said that you copied or you compared what other towns do, and I understand that, and I wouldn't think anything less. But what type of a review do we do for $2,500? It looks like a lot of it is just reviewing documentation that's either been provided by the Board of Adjustment, by the Board of, or the Planning Board, and the applicant itself. Is there a large amount of oversight or looking at this application to generate a $2,500 fee?
I think you just answered your own question.
No, I didn't. Because I look at when you bring up the farmers market, I look at what they have to go through and inspect those vendors and everything else that goes in there. There's a lot of effort that goes in there. And that's only a $50 fee. I know we're comparing apples to oranges here, but there's a lot of work that goes into those vendors. And just to get off on a tangent, when you talk about you don't want to discourage organizers for the farmers market and you want to reduce those fees, I would agree with you 100%. But I don't think the organizer applies that discount to the vendors. I think he charges the same rate to the vendor, even though he receives a better discount, which allow him to make more money just on rent alone for the vendor. So I agree with the bringing business in there, but I mean, don't try to flip the script, Mr. Mayor, and try to make it as if it's all for the community and everything else that's here. There's a connection you have with that vendor or that organizer, and you.
All right, Mr. Kelly, your time's up. I gave you extra
Of course,
time.
you're going to stop me when we get in.
When you start making false accusations, exactly. Mr. Quinn, you're recognized.
Absolutely false. Total
Mr.
lies,
Quinn, you're
Mr. Kelly.
recognized.
Thank you. Well, on better notes, we are supporting businesses in this town. The Empanada Day with the Empanada truck, we all happened to go there, and it was a nice turnout. He is a member of our community that we support, and he is doing great over there at Tony and Benny's area. We also, Rocco's Hair and More is sponsoring a baseball team. He is looking to help out in Rockaway Township, our kids programs. And he offered to do all the Challenger program kids for free. He cut their hair and set up specific times for them, and they came in and got free haircuts. So he's giving back to the community. Also, the Challenger program is starting its softball, weather permitting, this Saturday at Peterson Field. And they will continue through as long as the weather works out. Talking of Peterson Field, everywhere I go in this town, that's all people are talking about, much to other council people's chagrin. This is what people want in this town right now. It has been woefully looked at and worked on. It is about time it's getting done, and it is getting done for the right reasons. And if you can't understand that people move to this town for schools and they move to this town for a good recreation program for their kids and the education they're getting, then I don't know where you're living. But we shall move on and we shall get things done that have to be done in spite of one person so far.
The voters.
And everybody else,
Don't
please.
don't interrupt anybody, Mr. Kelly. Nobody interrupts you when you're telling your false statement. So sit back, sit back and soak it in, Mr. Kelly. Sit back and soak it in. Sit back, relax, relax. Smiley. Go ahead, Mr. Quinn.
Yes, and I want to thank administration for handling some issues that we had over here in Ward 2, especially dealing with property maintenance. It was a great help. My residents are very happy with that. And the ordinance committee has been working tirelessly on getting these ordinances straightened out and updated with our attorneys. There'll be more coming, trying to keep us moving forward to 2021. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Everybody stay safe and healthy.
Thank you. Mr. Friedlander.
Have to unmute.
There you go.
Hey, thank you for the long dissertation, Mr. Kelly. I was able to go to the little boys' room. Okay.
You're welcome. I hope you're eating your pickles.
Yeah, they're gone already. Anyway, library update. If you want to know, the construction for the new study room was completed except for the molding. Inspection went the other day and it passed. And they're going to be putting in the carpet soon. And if anybody needs any books that are or any materials, it's still accessible from the staff, and they'll hold it for you. Looks pretty good. If you're interested in the Historical Society, the weather's changed. People are getting vaccinated, and they're starting to plan some outside events. There's one this Saturday. If you check our website with the Historical Society, you'll start seeing some things going on. They're having a hiking around Mount Hope this Saturday, but it's limited to 20 people, and I believe that one's full. You'd have to check. But if you're interested in June 17th, May, we're part of the Pathways of History, and they're going to meet at the Hibernia Library. They're going over to Miners Church and the Historic District, which also includes the Hibernia, well, that's the Hibernia Methodist Episcopal Church. And that's 12 to 4 on May 2nd. So start following the Historical Society, because now they're opening up to outside venues. Just want to update that the Board of Assessment this week, they're probably going to get some scheduling done. They're going over the last details, so I'll keep you posted on the Board of Assessment. Fourth thing on an issue, I just want to thank Dave Dyer for reaching out for DPW. It's been an issue for a while in the White Meadow area for all the residents that walk. If you notice, from the winter time, you always get that gravel along the sides of the road from the plowing and the snow, and that's where people walk. And because of the holidays, they requested the street sweeper to do a little run by and clean up the streets, so people didn't slip and fall walking to their respective places of worship. And they went out and did a great job, and I just want to thank the business administration and DPW for doing something. I got a lot of calls, and it was well appreciated. And that's it.
Thank you. Vice President Sackett?
Thank you, Council President. I guess the business administration, assistant business administrator, have been doing an excellent job, and I want to thank Dave Dyer, along with tax assessor Kimberly Johnson, for taking the time to speak with a resident in my ward with a few issues with their assessment. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. Also, like Councilman Quinn had mentioned, Thursday, April 8th was Empanada Day, and a few of us were able to stop down briefly for some lunch and support Raphael and Zolili Empanadas on National Empanada Day. It was good to see so many people out there supporting a local business, and it was a fun time. I was glad to be there. I attended a Citizen Recreation Committee meeting last Tuesday, April 6th, and earlier Councilman Brooks had mentioned all sports programs pretty much off and running in Rockaway. Rec soccer is starting on the 20th of April, but pretty much everything else is running. And I know lacrosse has had some games. I know baseball is getting ready to go. Babe Ruth is getting ready to go. So that's glad to see. Also, I like seeing with the Citizen Recreation Committee, they're really out spreading their wings, getting involved with the seniors and the Challenger program in town, getting more involved in different things. Because, you know, we're not, the Citizen Recreation Committee doesn't want to just cater to the kids. There's a lot of different groups in town, and it's good that they're spreading their wings and getting more involved with other programs in town. Also, I attended the Rockaway Area Chamber of Commerce meeting last Friday. And if you're interested, they're looking for new members. You can find them on Facebook or their website, rockawaynjchamber.com. They have their meetings usually the first Friday of the month, 9 a.m. down at Christ Church. Down at Christ Church. So that is my report. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. For myself, there's so much to cover. Mr. Kelly, you know, his statements, his allegation, his underlying threats are unbelievable. So start with a few things. You know, this great group of council members back in 2018, Mr. Kelly worked with. So one was recalled, one resigned, and two didn't seek re-election. That's a great group of individuals there that did so much for the township. Really good. Keep interrupting, Mr. Kelly. Keep being childish. Keep interrupting people. Nobody interrupts you.
There's no
keep interrupting everybody. In terms of insurance, you know, Mr. Kelly doesn't think $20,000 is a lot of money. I guess I think it is for the township taxpayers. In terms of Oprah requests, over his hundreds of Oprah requests over the years, he's never saved a penny for taxpayers. He's never proven any collusion, any wrongdoing. He just wastes money with these Oprah requests, and for nothing. He gets nothing. And keep in mind, you know, Mr. Kelly was removed as council president in this reign. So it's just pretty embarrassing that he keeps referring to this council and the things they did. The last thing I'd like to talk about is this commentary to the mayor about not being able to communicate and all that. You know, I want to point out something Mr. Kelly said last meeting. He asked Ms. Seer a question, and she said she'd cover in her report. And it's in the video. Videos don't lie. 1 minute, 22 seconds, 1 hour, 22 minutes in. And Mr. Kelly's response was, I don't have an opportunity to refute or rebut anything that you may say. Refute meaning to prove a statement to be wrong or false, and rebut, claim or prove that evidence is false. That's what Mr. Kelly's always looking to do with any other council member of the administration. There's not going to be a conversation. He says he wants to have a conversation. He doesn't. He wants to refute and rebut anything that's said, and that's what he does continually, and that's why there'll be no conversation during your report, because you don't know how to have a conversation. You know, you're interrupting me. Nobody interrupts you. Nobody interrupts you, and you interrupt everybody. You spread false statements. You make false statements. Be quiet. Sit back and be an adult. Be an adult. Sit back and be an adult. You're a failure. You're a failure. Sit back. Mr. Mayor, it's your report. You're up.
Thank you,
You're
Council
recognized,
President.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
I'm always amazed. I've been working with Mr. Kelly for 3 years now, 3.5.
You never work with me.
I'm always amazed.
Interrupt, Mr. Kelly. Interrupt. You're unreal. Unreal. Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
I'm always amazed how effortlessly he lies, meeting after meeting.
Just
First,
unbelievable.
I want to address a few things. I've never spoken to the person who's running the vendor or the organizer of the farmers market. Didn't know him prior to the farmers market. Don't have any business interactions with him. It's not even in my space for what I do for a living. And he's hired by them all. I don't know where he comes up, but he effortlessly lies. In terms of Peterson Field, we talk about having our DPW workers, our town workers do that. Anybody with a basic modicum of understanding of construction or government understands that if there are warranty issues, there's design issues, there's legal issues that go hand in hand with that. If we start injecting our town employees into the process, it voids the warranty. It's just basic 101. Anybody who understands construction. I'm not in construction and I understand that. Secondly, in terms of, I keep hearing about what other towns have done. We've been about how they've built their basketball courts, their tennis courts, their infrastructure improvements for so much less. Well, this project went out to bid according to statute, according to the way we have to put it out to bid. And we took the lowest bid. So what Mr. Kelly's saying is that he's making an accusation that the vendor is overcharging us. Well, we chose the lowest bid. We followed the process.
Nobody made.
Mr. Kelly.
Stop talking, Mr.
Please.
Nobody
Kelly.
made that.
Oh my God.
Please.
Shut up.
Oh, so
Please
annoying.
let me finish.
And ain't tell.
So,
It's like when your dog's barking.
Mr. Kelly
Nobody
continues.
made
Just keep talking. Just keep
Mr.
talking,
Kelly,
Mr. Mayor. Ignore him.
Nobody
Mr.
made.
Kelly continues
Mr.
to
Mayor.
spread. Can I speak? He
Just
wants to
ignore
shut.
him.
False
Council
information.
President, he wants to shut me down because he knows what I'm
Mr.
saying.
Kelly,
is
you're
true.
out of order. Mr. Kelly, you're out of order. You've been out of order for
I'm
like
not
the
out.
past half
Now
hour.
with
Stop
with
talking.
reference
You're
with
not
reference
recognized. You're
with
out of
reference
order.
Mute him already.
with reference to the Oprah request, he's filed almost 100 or more Oprah requests. He has yet to provide any one of you, the public. He lies. He effortlessly lies. He has yet to provide you with any emails of substance that where he has contacted me and asked for information that he hasn't gotten. Last week, he asked for the permits
You
for
have.
the health. Last week,
You're out of
he
order,
asked
Mr.
for the
Kelly.
permits.
You're out of
La-
order, Mr. Kelly.
Last week, he asked for the permits for the farmer's market. He received them the same day. He had, I explained, he wants certain items that he's not entitled to. He wants project plans for Peterson Field when they haven't gone out to bid yet. It
But you
affects
give.
the bidding process.
You're out of order, Mr. Kelly. You're out of
wants
order,
the,
Mr. Kelly. You're
he
out of
wants
order,
the,
Mr.
he
Kelly.
wants
give
the
him every.
engineer.
You're out of
He
order,
wants,
Mr. Kelly.
he wants the engineering numbers. He's not getting them. I don't give them to everybody else. I work with a committee that's designed
Mr.
by
President.
myself.
You're out of order. And Mr. Mayor,
Wow.
listen, Mr. Mayor, let's move on to positive things. I think you're upsetting Mr.
Sure.
Kelly. Let's
I know.
just
All
move
right.
on to
Okay.
positive things.
What I
Really
want to,
upset. He
we-
looks
we-
teary-eyed. Just move on to positive things.
okay. What I want to talk about very briefly is the budget. We are obviously our bond rating is excellent. It's remained excellent over the years, and it remains excellent at the present. One way to reduce issues, or Mr. Kelly asks about bonds and how we can increase our bond rating. Well, I think one way to do that is to reduce litigation. Obviously, litigation erodes public
Following.
confidence. It obviously
Kelly, you're out of
litigation.
order.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr.
Wow,
Kelly,
I
you're
can't
out of
even
order.
talk.
I have a guy.
Obviously, litigation
litigation.
erodes
Mr. Mayor,
public confidence.
talk about something else. You're upsetting him.
Okay,
Come on,
all right.
please.
I'm gonna.
Anything.
All right.
It's
Yeah,
like.
I'll go
please.
back
He's
to.
upset. He's upset.
I
Stop.
just want. I
Stop.
want to explain to the public the breakdown of our tax bill, of their tax bill. I do this every year. I think it's important so the residents know where the lion's share of their taxes go. 24.41% is the municipal portion of the tax bill. That's what the council votes on. That's what the council accepts. That's what we work through. You have the municipal library tax, which is 1.23%. That's governed by the state. That's mandatory. We have our county tax, which is 9.84%. We have our local school board tax, which is the K through 8. That's 39.31%. And the regional school board, which is Morris Hills, Morris Knolls, which is 25.21. So I want to make it clear that this council has control over 24.41% of the budget. Now, what that means is that for this year, the average household is assessed at $355,263. And those numbers come from the tax assessor's office. And it's computed by dividing the total assessed value for the township by the number of residential properties. The average household in Rockaway Township will have an increase of $39 per year for the municipal portion of their tax bill. So we've maintained our bond rating. We are making improvements within the town. We're moving projects forward. You heard Mr. Wittig, a political operative in town, and I have to refer to him that way because he's the same gentleman that puts out propaganda against this council. He was on the Financial Review Board. He's the same gentleman who Oprah requested emails from the town from dog licenses, and that's where people get anonymous.
You're going nowhere with that.
Anonymous emails sometimes from him in the
Defend your
past,
friend. That's okay,
in the
Mr. Kelly.
present.
Oh, look at this.
So
Defend your friend.
I just want to make that clear. I just want to clarify that portion of it. So we are doing a lot in the town. We're moving forward despite Mr. Kelly's effortless lies. It's just amazing. I'm amazed all the time at how much he lies. So that is my report for tonight. I want our attorneys to explain what Mr. when that you get to them in the report, what Mr. Kelly talked about insurance, how he tried to tell the public that it's covered by insurance. I want a good explanation from our attorneys on that.
So okay, that's the next report is the township attorney, Mr. Yachfano.
Thank you, Council
This ought to
President.
be good.
You're out of order.
Thank you, Council President. First, in response to the mayor's question, all of the Oprah litigation that Mr. Kelly has initiated is not covered by any insurance. So the task of defending those lawsuits and the work that's entailed in that respect is all on the taxpayers. With respect to the individual lawsuits that Mr. Kelly has maintained, one or two of them are picked up by our insurance, but even then, it's necessary for Carl and myself to interact with designated counsel from the insurance company. They're fine lawyers, but they're outside of the township. They frequently have to call upon us for material, documents, history, things like that. And there is literally no matter that, unfortunately, there's literally no matter initiated by Mr. Kelly that unfortunately spares the taxpayer in terms of incurring legal fees to the township. Now, on a positive note, the administration and the council, the public should know, the administration and the council have really stepped up to the plate in terms of revisions to our ordinances. Right now, with the help of the mayor, Pat Seeger, various people in the administration and staff and department heads, we are working on revisions of two major blocks of law and ordinances. The first is a series of modifications to our property maintenance ordinance to bring things up to date and to also input certain requirements that virtually every other town has and we have never had. But rather than give you a preview, that is a group of ordinance amendments that the council will have in very short order. Next, I don't know who's up on my screen at this point, but I think I'm going to see a couple of members of the council smile. We will probably have to Mr. Quinn's ordinance committee before the end of the week a rewrite of the peddling, soliciting, canvassing ordinance, what's necessary because, like too many of those ordinances in New Jersey, that ordinance was pretty significantly unconstitutional. and we're going to incorporate all the changes that are required. Plus, there's going to be a no-knock section of that ordinance, which will protect our taxpayers, homeowners, renters, residents from unwanted solicitations and contact. We're going to have that to Mr. Quinn and his committee by the end of the week. And with the cooperation of the council, working with the administration, as most of the council has been consistently over the past nearly 2 years, we'll have some good and progressive legislation for you to consider.
Perfect. Thank you.
Is that it? You're muted again, Mr. Yatsfano. That's it?
This is Carl Perron.
Yeah.
May I say something, Council President?
Sure, you're recognized, part of the Township Attorney Report.
With respect to the two cases that Mr. Kelly has brought against the township and you, and the township and the mayor, those cases are not covered by insurance at this time. They have hired an insurance attorney, insurance counsel. The council was hired through what's called the employee liability policies. And the employee liability policy, as you referenced previously during this meeting, has a $20,000 deductible. That $20,000 deductible is applied to counsel fees and costs first. If there is a judgment, if all counsel fees and costs haven't been expended up to that $20,000, then the township taxpayers would pay 20% of that judgment. That's up to $250,000. So there's a potential of over $60,000 for each case of taxpayer dollars that would go into defending and possibly paying for the alleged damages. So as to those two cases that have been brought against the township and the mayor and the township and the council president, there's the $20,000 deductible that I think you were referring to, Mayor. Council president. Yeah. So yes,
very sad.
That's $20,000. That's $40,000.
There's another case. Very sad. Very sad. You're out of order, Mr. Kelly.
That's $40,000.
You're out of order, Mr. Kelly. You're out of order, Mr. Kelly. You're out of order, Mr. Kelly.
May I finish, please? It's $40,000.
You're out of order.
Taxpayer money.
You get one of those shock collars. Go ahead, Mr. Perron. Finish up.
It's $40,000 of taxpayer money at risk. In addition, in each of those cases, Mr. Kelly has sought indemnification from the township for his own counsel fees. So not only is he potentially costing the township up to $64,000, I think the total is, in each case, which is $128,000 if you add them together. He's also asking for his own counsel fees to be paid by the township. Just so.
All right, you have to stop, Mr. Perron. My head's. I can't take any more of this. It's too much. Too much.
Okay, well,
so
I just wanted to clarify. Just wanted to clarify. That's
thank you. Thank you. Mrs. Seeger, do you have anything to report tonight?
Yes, I do, sir. I just want to remind everybody that the spring cleanup is April 24th from 9 to 11. Please pre-register by calling 973-983-2848. And I also want to let everybody know there has been a lot of questions on why the DPW Recycling Center is open more down by the municipal building than up on Green Pond Road on the other side of the town. So Al Noth and myself, the DPW director, looked over our schedule, and I'm happy to report pretty soon this month, they'll be starting a new schedule. And on Saturdays on both locations will be open 7 to 3:30, which is a longer time. Nice. And then, but it will not be open on Monday. So Sunday and Monday it will be closed. Every other day it will be open. I did get some inquiries about that and some complaints from the upper Green Pond Road. So hopefully this will make everybody happy, and it will also help DPW with their own route that they do on Monday for collection. So hopefully It's a win-win for everybody. And the last thing I wanted to talk about is the ice cream truck. Mr. Tabbitt, it was Health Recognized Week for his department and all they've done for pandemic and everything. And he personally paid for the ice cream for the people that work with him directly. He did invite some of the DPW, but not all of them. I thought it was very generous of him to thank the people that work in his department and for him to extend it to the few people that he did. And I thought it was a great gesture. His department has worked overtime and it was not meant to insult anybody, but be a positive thing for the township and the employees who worked upstairs and helped him out in his department. And I thought it was a great idea. And I'm sorry if it offended anybody in particular, but we really, really want to look at it as a positive thing because our employees do
Yeah.
work very hard everywhere. Thank you. And during
Yeah,
the
it's a shame. It's the same, something he did so generously was attacked.
and
Go
during
ahead.
the winter, just to let
You're
you
out of
know,
order, Mr. Kelly.
It wasn't a
just,
I need a
and
little
just to
remote.
let you know, Mr. Jackson, during
Yes.
the winter, sometimes some of the employees buy pizza for the DPW, and they're the only ones who get that. We don't give it
Yeah.
to everybody in the building, so it goes around. What
It-
goes around comes around.
Yeah,
It's all
it doesn't matter.
positive.
It's not the point. It's just a shame. So thank you, Mrs. Seeger.
You're welcome.
Unbelievable ice cream.
Mrs. Ferrante, do you have anything to report? You're on mute if you're talking. Okay, Mrs. Palmieri, do you have anything to report?
Just no report. Just thank you for adopting the budget. I'm looking forward to moving forward.
You got it.
Thank you.
Mr. Dyer, anything to report?
No report, Council President. Have a good night.
All right. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Mr. Quinn?
Yes.
All in favor?
I'll get it.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, have a good night, everybody.
Take care.
Stay healthy and safe.
Oh, these pickles.